Welcome to this deep dive. We're so thrilled to have you with us today.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
If you're tuning in right now, we already know a little bit about you. You're that person who loves gaining knowledge, not just the, surface level stuff, but a thorough, well-rounded understanding of the world.
Right. You want the whole picture.
Exactly. You crave those genuine aha moments.
Yeah.
You love looking at things from multiple perspectives, and most importantly, you want all of this without feeling totally overwhelmed by information overload.
Which is so easy to happen these days.
It really is. So that is exactly what we're here to do for you today.
And honestly, it's the perfect mindset for the material we are looking at today, because it absolutely requires us to completely shift our perspective.
Totally.
It challenges some of the most basic, fundamental assumptions we have about how human beings interact.
It really does. So today's deep dive is custom tailored around excerpts from this beautifully poetic and profoundly challenging piece of writing. The text is titled Episode 532, Non-Speaking Microclimates, AAC, Silence, and the Right Not to Perform.
Such a powerful title.
I know, right? Our mission for this session is to take this incredible text, which uses these sweeping metaphors of weather and climates, and unpack it to completely reframe how we view communication, silence, and what it actually means to be present with another human being.
Yeah.
It's a short piece, but the implications are absolutely massive. So, okay, let's unpack this. Where do we even begin with a text that uses meteorology to talk about how we talk?
Well, we begin exactly where the author starts us off,
Yes.
by contextualizing the journey.
Right.
The text explicitly reflects on a progression, a larger arc
Mm-hmm.
that has already been moving through different stages of communication. It maps out this really incredible sequence.
Okay, lay it out for us.
So it notes that this journey began with Winter Underground.
Winter Underground.
Yeah. And from there, it moved through what the author calls liminal air, then into sudden broadcast, and then into engineered storms and coerced rain, before finally widening out into what the title references, which is microclimates.
I mean, just that sequence alone is incredibly evocative. But before we get to the microclimates part, what does a phrase like winter underground actually look like for a person?
It's a great question.
Are we talking about the isolation before someone gets access to a communication device? Because it sounds incredibly isolating.
Exactly. That's exactly it. When we are talking about non-speaking individuals or people who lose their speech, winter underground represents that dormant, buried period. The mind is fully alive, the roots are there, but there is no pathway to the surface.
Wow. So society just looks at the frozen ground and assumes nothing is happening below.
Right. And then the text mentions moving into liminal air. Liminal meaning a threshold or a transitional space.
Okay.
Think of it as that tense, uncertain period where a tool, maybe a letterboard or a tablet app, is introduced, but the person hasn't quite mastered it yet.
Or maybe the people around them don't know how to listen to it yet.
Precisely. It's in between.
That makes total sense. And from there, the text mentions sudden broadcast, which, I mean, that sounds like the moment the tool finally works.
Yes.
Suddenly, the words are just out there.
Yes, the broadcast happens. And just to be clear for you listening, when the text mentions these tools, it's explicitly defining these microclimates as AAC.
Right. Augmentative and alternative communication.
Exactly. So that includes text-to-speech devices on a tablet, eye-tracking screens, letterboards, or even sign language.
Got it.
So the journey moves from that buried winter through the threshold into the sudden broadcast of using AAC. But then it hits this very dark phase.
The engineered storms and coerced rain.
Yes. And ultimately, the goal of the text is to move past all of that and arrive at an ecosystem of microclimates where AAC and silence are recognized as sovereign states of being.
It's such vivid imagery, but the text immediately gives us this vital caveat about the whole progression. And this is the quote that really stopped me in my tracks.
Let's hear it.
The author writes, "That arc was never meant to imply that thunder is superior to fog."
What's fascinating here is how the author uses these specific weather events as brilliant metaphors for communication style.
Yeah.
Think about thunder. Thunder is loud.
Very loud.
It rolls across the landscape, it demands attention, it vibrates in your chest, and everyone can hear it.
You literally cannot ignore it.
Right. In the context of communication, thunder represents traditional spoken neurotypical language.
Okay.
It is the immediate broadcast form of communication that society expects and completely rewards.
And I was thinking about this in my own life. I feel like we've all been at a chaotic, loud networking event or a packed family dinner.
Oh, yeah.
It is total thunder. Everyone is broadcasting, talking over each other, trying to be the loudest in the room. But honestly, sometimes in those situations, no one is actually connecting.
That is such a good point.
And then you have the complete opposite, which the text calls fog.
Yes. Fog is quiet. It doesn't make a sound.
It just sits there.
It sits close to the ground. It alters the landscape softly. It is highly atmospheric, but completely silent.
So what is the fog exactly?
The fog represents quieter, non-traditional forms of communication. That includes using an AAC device, non-speaking presence, and silence itself.
Wow.
By explicitly stating that thunder is not superior to fog, the text is radically dismantling the hierarchy of how we value human connection.
Which brings us to a phrase in the text that I think is going to stick with you, the listener, for a very long time.
The moral neutral weather.
Yes, moral neutral weather. It literally says some climates have thunder, some have fog, none of them are moral failures.
That phrase, moral failures, is the linchpin of this entire concept.
Break that down for us.
Well, think about how heavily our society judges communication.
We judge it constantly.
Constantly. If someone is highly articulate, loud, and quick to speak, if they have a lot of thunder, we tend to assign them positive moral attributes.
Right. We view them as confident, intelligent,
Capable, successful, we trust them more.
And if someone doesn't speak, if they are silent, or if they take 30 seconds to type out a sentence on an iPad, or if they just exist quietly in a space.
Society often treats that fog as a deficit.
Yeah.
It's treated as a lack of intelligence, a lack of capability, or even a behavioral problem. People will talk over them.
Or worse, talk to them as if they are toddlers.
Exactly. It is, in a very subtle but pervasive way, treated as a moral failure on the part of the individual.
That is so unfair.
It is. The text is demanding that we view communication exactly the same way we view the weather. You don't look at a foggy morning and say, this weather has failed. It should be thunder.
Right. You just put on a sweater.
Exactly. You just recognize it as a different atmospheric condition.
Yeah.
It's entirely morally neutral.
That immediately makes me look at the text's core definition of language, because if language isn't just about making sound, then what actually is it?
Right.
The text gives us this incredibly distilled, beautiful definition. It says, language is relational presence. It exists whether or not it arrives in broadcast form.
Relational presence.
I love the poetry of this, I really do. But let's play devil's advocate for a second.
Okay.
We live in a fast-paced society where quick, verbal broadcasts are how we survive.
Sure.
If I'm crossing the street and a car is coming, I need someone to yell, watch out.
Absolutely.
We rely on fast broadcasts at work, in emergencies, in everyday logistics. How does this idea of relational presence hold up against the practical reality of our world?
It's a great question, and it's the natural friction we feel when a paradigm gets challenged. Yes, broadcast communication shouting, watch out, or giving a quick status update in a meeting has immense practical utility.
Right.
No one is arguing that thunder isn't useful, but utility is not the same thing as human value.
Well, that's good.
The problem is that we've taken the utility of the broadcast and made it the absolute measure of a person's worth. When the text says language is relational presence, it is broadening the definition.
Yeah.
It's saying that the connection between two people, the shared space, the mutual awareness, the nonverbal exchange of energy or attention, that is also language. Full stop.
It exists completely independent of spoken words.
Completely independent.
So what does this all mean? For you, listening right now, thinking about how you interact with your colleagues, your family, your friends, this text separates the actual value of your human connection from how loud or typical it is.
Yes.
It means you don't have to broadcast a signal to be communicating. Sitting quietly in a room with someone sharing the fog is a valid language.
Exactly. And once we accept that, the text asks us to do something structurally radical.
Okay.
It asks us to collapse the ladder. The exact quote is, and if we collapse the ladder, something quiet and radical becomes possible. We can stop measuring climate against a single sky.
Collapsing the ladder. Now, a ladder is inherently hierarchical. You have the bottom rungs and you have the top rungs. So what exactly is this ladder we are climbing?
In the context of this text, the top rung of the ladder is effortless. Verbal speech. Thunder.
Okay.
Every other form of communication typing on a screen, Pointing to a letterboard, using sign language, gesturing, or remaining entirely silent is relegated to the lower rungs.
And we just expect people to climb it.
The medical and educational systems are constantly trying to pull people up this ladder, trying to fix them so they get as close to verbal speech as possible.
And that single sky the author mentions.
That represents a neurotypical speaking-centric standard. We judge every single human interaction against the metric of how close is this to normal speech?
We measure every climate against that single blue thunder-producing sky. If someone uses an AAC device, we think, well, that's good, but it's not as good as talking.
Right.
We are constantly grading the weather. But the text says that if we collapse that ladder, if we just flatten it out, something quiet and radical becomes possible.
This raises an important question. What happens when we stop demanding that every single person, regardless of their neurology or physical capabilities, live up to the standard of thunder?
What happens?
If there is no ladder, there is no hierarchy. If there's no single sky, then there is no single correct way to be a human being in the world.
You know, I was tracking with all these weather metaphors, but here's where it gets really interesting to me.
Okay.
The author pivots from these broad, poetic metaphors into a series of incredibly pointed, almost challenging what-if statements.
I love this part.
The text asks, if we stopped ranking weather, what would shift? And then it gives us 4 specific conditional statements.
Let's go through them.
Let's unpack these one by one because they really hit hard. The first one is, if thunder were not proof of success.
This directly attacks the fluency equals intelligence fallacy.
Fluency equals intelligence.
Right. In our society, verbal fluency is currently the ultimate proof of success. If a child learns to speak early, we cheer. If an adult is articulate in a meeting, we promote them. The text asks us to strip thunder of its status as the ultimate prize. What if being loud and fast with your words didn't automatically make you the smartest person in the room?
It would completely change who we elect, who we hire, who we listen to.
It changes everything.
That's a huge shift. Okay, the second statement. If fog were not suspicion, why is fog suspicious?
Because it's opaque. You can't see clearly through it.
Right.
When someone is non-speaking or when they have a flat affect, their communication style is like fog. Society views that with deep suspicion.
People wonder, do they really understand what I'm saying?
Are they really in there? We suspect that a lack of speech equals a lack of mind.
That's awful.
It is. The text challenges us to stop viewing the fog as something to be suspicious of. Stop doubting the inner lives of non-speaking people and start trusting the fog as a valid state of being.
I feel like we all need to hear that. The third one might be the most heartbreaking, honestly.
Yeah.
The author writes, if typed sentences were not consolation.
Think about what a consolation prize is. It's what you get when you lose the main event.
It's the ribbon they give you just for participating.
Exactly. In the world of communication, AAC typing on a device using an eye tracker is so often treated by society, and especially by medical systems, as a tragic second best.
Like a backup plan.
You can imagine a doctor sitting down with parents and saying with a heavy sigh, "I'm sorry, they're going to have to use a device."
Oh, man.
It's viewed as a consolation for failing to speak.
But it shouldn't be.
No. By stating, if typed sentences were not consolation, the author is fiercely asserting the sovereignty of AAC. It is not a backup plan.
It is its own complete, beautiful microclimate.
Yes. It is just as miraculous to type a sentence with your eyes as it is to speak it with your mouth.
Wow. And finally, the fourth statement. If silence were not absence.
This brings us back to relational presence.
Right, because we always assume that if a room is quiet, nothing is happening. If someone isn't actively contributing to a conversation, we assume they've checked out.
Right. But if language is relational presence, as the text defined earlier, then silence is completely full of presence.
It's full of connection.
Removing these societal judgments, the proof, the suspicion, the consolation, the absence, is what restores the sovereignty the text mentioned earlier.
Sovereignty. Having ultimate power and authority over your own domain.
By validating these microclimates, we give non-speaking individuals the sovereignty to exist exactly as they are without having to apologize for their weather.
Which brings us to the darkest imagery in the text, and I think this is where we really need to spend some time to understand what's at stake here.
Definitely.
Earlier in the sequence, the author mentioned the journey moving through engineered storms and coerced rain.
Yeah.
When you compare that to everything we've just talked about, the quiet beauty of the fog, the sovereignty of silence, an engineered storm sounds violent. It sounds incredibly unnatural.
It is violent, and it is a profound critique of the reality that many neurodivergent and non-speaking people face every day.
What does that mean, practically?
Think about what an engineered storm actually is. If someone's natural, comfortable climate is fog, but society absolutely demands thunder, what happens?
Society tries to engineer a storm.
Yes.
But what does that actually look like in the real world? Because we aren't talking about actual weather control here. We are talking about human beings.
We are talking about interventions. We are talking about intense, sometimes grueling therapies designed to force verbal speech at all costs.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a non-speaking child being forced to sit at a table for hours, prompted to repeat a single vowel sound over and over again just to earn a basic reward, like a snack or a toy.
That's heartbreaking.
They are physically capable of pointing to a picture of what they want in 2 seconds, which is fog.
Right.
But the adult insists on the vocal sound, which is thunder. The child is frustrated, exhausted, and stressed. We're literally squeezing a storm out of them just because society prefers the sound of rain.
That is awful. You are forcing someone to burn massive amounts of energy to produce something that doesn't come naturally to them purely for the comfort of the listener.
Exactly. And it extends to adults, too.
In what way?
In the form of masking. A neurodivergent adult might force themselves to make intense eye contact, modulate their tone of voice, and produce thunder in a workplace just to avoid suspicion or judgment.
That sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. It is the act of coercing rain from a sky that isn't built to rain. It prioritizes the comfort of the neurotypical majority over the well-being and bodily autonomy of the individual.
Coerced rain. It really makes you rethink how much performance we demand from people just to consider them polite or engaged.
Absolutely.
Which makes the final lines of the text so incredibly powerful. After walking us through the pain of engineered storms and the beauty of microclimates, the author leaves us with one last defining question.
And it's a big one.
What if the task were not to make every sky sound the same, but to build shelter that fits each one?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is the ultimate paradigm shift in how we approach disability, neurodiversity, and human differences in general.
It flips the whole script.
Making every sky sound the same is the engineered storm. It is demanding that the individual change to fit a rigid environment. It is demanding that everyone produce thunder.
But building shelter that fits each one shifts the entire burden.
Yes. It shifts the burden of accommodation away from the marginalized person and onto the society.
It's saying the individual is fine, their sky is perfect just the way it is. It is our job as a society, as listeners, as architects of our communities, to adapt the environment to support them.
Precisely. It's an architectural challenge for the human heart.
I love that phrasing.
If someone communicates via AAC, building shelter means giving them the time they need to type without interrupting or rushing them.
Just wait for the sentence.
Right. If someone communicates through silence and shared presence, building shelter means sitting with them in that quiet without feeling the need to fill the air with chatter.
Stop trying to change the weather.
And start learning how to build better shelters.
To build a shelter that accommodates the fog. To build a shelter that respects the typed sentences. To build a shelter that honors the silence.
Yeah.
This has been such an incredible journey to unpack with you.
It really has been.
We've traveled from the deeply buried isolation of the winter underground, through the exhaustion of engineered storms and coerced rain, into the liberating concept of moral neutral weather.
It's a profound shift.
We've discovered together that language isn't just about the loudest broadcast. It is fundamentally about relational presence. And for you, the listener, recognizing this changes absolutely everything.
It really does.
Recognizing that the fog and the typed sentences are valid, powerful microclimates will completely change how you interact with everyone around you. It changes how you sit with a quiet friend in a room. It changes what you expect from your colleagues and what you demand of your children.
And that leads right into the overarching theme, which was hinted at in the very title of the piece.
The right not to perform.
The right not to perform. The true takeaway from unpacking all these beautiful metaphors is that acknowledging these microclimates gives people the sovereignty to simply be.
Just be.
They don't owe the world thunder. They don't have to perform spoken language just to prove they have a mind or to make the people around them feel more comfortable. They have the fundamental human right to their own weather.
They have the right to their own weather. I love that. The text asks us to build shelter for every sky, to stop demanding thunder, and to embrace the moral neutrality of every single microclimate.
It's a beautiful challenge.
It is. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. The author asks us to look at the sky differently. So consider this. If you spend your whole life exclusively expecting thunder, constantly measuring every interaction by how loud and typical it is, what beautiful, profound types of presence have you completely missed in the fog right in front of you?
Wow.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We loved exploring this with you, and we'll be here waiting for the next time you're ready to learn something new.